Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, Mysterious Voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. Today it is Poetry Thursday, and I want to continue with this period of Pride where I highlight trans, LGBT, gay, queer, lesbian poets. And I have a bit of an interesting poem for you today. It is about plants and relationships. I am referring to Snake Plant by K.B. Brookins. For those who don't know, K.B. Brookins is a Black American writer. They're from Texas, and they're a pretty new writer. They've been writing for mostly what seems to be the past 5 years. I can't seem to find anything older than that. But they have won a number of awards for this short amount of work. And this includes books, essays, articles, and poetry as well. They identify as trans and that non-binary, which is significant. I'm basing the non-binary by their Wikipedia and also their trans by their work, given that they have this is what it's like to live in Texas as a trans person. It's interesting, and it would suggest that this person has to be trans if they're writing about it. So that's where I'm coming from with this. I've been drawn to a number of their poems, but this one in particular, I think I chose because it's not specifically about oppression of the trans identity, which I feel I talk about a lot, and that tends to bring down this period of Pride. So I'll try to minimize those, but of course, if something's really fascinating, I'm not going to stop myself from reading it on here. But yeah, without further ado, let's talk about Snake Plant. I will read it, do a little bit of analysis, and we'll move on from there. Snake Plant. I'm giving a chance to the parts of me that need to come home. For you, my lover, the concubine of my truths, I'll tell you in honesty. The snake plant's need for water and the soil's need for fertilizer every 4 weeks. I think to give myself that same treatment. I fail much like the crumbles of roots that become unalive when getting this plant over to the other pot. We all need room enough for our greatness. You're doing great in some other city and mine too, while I wait for you to live someplace other than my discomfort. I thought I would be done with it by now, but I'll take a new leaf, a new vase to put in some new peace. I'm asking a question. Why did you let me do it? Create my loneliness, level its sincerity beyond belief, let grief take over the bed and beg you to take me back. Is it the mask or masculinity that did it? It'll always be making messy what was chalk dust to begin with, and you saying no etched in the memory of my dreams. If ecology did a versus against man, ecology would eat him up every day of the week. I can't believe some of the things I've been able to get away with. Cursing you, badgering you, calling to say I'm ready to get back together, and you would have too if stronger influences let up again. The snake plant's multitudes of brown flakes caked up in its highest straightened leaves are a sign of decay. You'd want to clip them if they got cancerous. By my TV, it's grown from ankle size to God. It stretches its fingertips like second graders overcompensating their height. I do that too while picking white mulberries from trees on our neighborhood walks. I feed them to you with stems still attached because your eagerness to kiss the earth stumps dirt-flavored seeds. The snake plant's grooves also remind me of your hips moving like water to Bad Bunny, barefaced and singing translations in my ear. Funny. Something can sound beautiful and mean fuckboy in another language. Funny, you let me into you like love living through the snake plant, no matter my sometimes neglect. In terms of analysis, that was Snake Plant. There's a fair bit worth talking about here. In terms of narrative, I think it's very interesting what Brookins is doing with this poem. It's divided into 4 verses. No rhyme or reason to those verses except for, I think, what sort of like the stage of a relationship. Sort of a person, the narrator talking about how they've broken up with someone, like they need that person in their life, but they've broken up with them. And in the first verse, they say, "You're doing great in some other city, and mine too, while I wait for you to live someplace other than my discomfort." So hoping this person moves closer to them, but as it stands right now, like it's just discomfort. They're not happy with where this relationship, or what seems to be a relationship. It's clear that a breakup has taken place, so that's causing some level of anxiety there. And then in the second verse, they say, "Why did you let me do it? Create my loneliness, level its sincerity beyond belief. Let grief take over the bed and beg you to take me back." And you saying no, etched in the memory of my dreams. So clearly something went wrong in this relationship. These two people broke apart. And then in the next verse, they say, I called you to say we should get back together. And they said, you would have too if stronger influences let up again. But the person clearly didn't want to get back together. And then in the final verse, they talk more about the past experience of that relationship. The snake plant's grooves also remind me of your hips moving like water to Bad Bunny, barefaced and singing translations in my ear. And then funny, you let me into you like love, living through the snake plant, no matter my sometimes neglect. Maybe that's being whimsical about a past relationship, just sort of remembering it fondly. Or maybe this was at a point where their relationship was somewhat strong. The poem is out of sequence, so you can't really tell whether this is cataloging a relationship that went away, or one that went away and then came back together eventually, or just one that was never fully there to begin with. But I do like how Brookins does that, because it presents a sort of flowy type of relationship. Like time isn't really standing still, you're jumping from point to point. I also like how Brookins uses the snake plant, a common house plant, as a means of exploring the sort of this relationship that's going on. Just talking about, like, I'll tell you what, honesty. The snake plant's need for water and the soil's need for fertilizer every 4 weeks. I think I'll give myself the same treatment. So tending to yourself, letting yourself grow, but also, as they say later in the poem, tending to the dead leaves that might grow cancerous. It might be the case that you think that this relationship that you're in is pretty strong and beautiful and you really want it, but if it's a cancerous relationship, if it's going to harm you and the other person, you want to trim it. You want to make sure you get rid of that. Maybe rejoin at a later date in the hopes that that relationship can be thriving again, that maybe both of you have matured to a point where this relationship can happen. But not every relationship is meant to work out. Not every relationship goes where it needs to, because it's sometimes unhealthy. And so in order for you to grow, you have to get over this sort of hump that you're in. You have to become stronger and just to make those tough decisions in order to thrive. And then you see this in the last verse as well, where the narrator says, funny, you let me into like love, living through the snake plant, no matter my sometimes neglect, indicating that the relationship and the plants can sometimes be neglected. But sometimes neglect doesn't always kill the plants. Just like sometimes neglect wouldn't kill the plant or wouldn't kill the relationship, as long as you tended to it at a later date. So comparing relationships with plants, not necessarily new ground being broken there, but it is a very beautiful way to sort of describe this relationship, especially one that might not necessarily be thriving, noting that sometimes aspects of that relationship and aspects of the plant can be cancerous, and it needs to be trimmed for it to be fully healthy. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Snake Plant by K.B. Brookins. A solid poem, one that is a very good read, and a great addition to this period of Pride, where I'm talking about LGBTQA plus poets and whatnot. If you have any thoughts, let me know in the comments below, or if you just want to comment on my review, let me know. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this poem or this poet if they don't know about either. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and gardening-related travels. Farewell.